Okay, good evening. Welcome to this Development Management Committee meeting. I'll just go through the preliminaries first. The meeting this evening will be live streamed meeting to the public. A recording of the public part of the meeting will be available on the Council's website within 24 hours of the meeting. Would remote participants please use their hands up icon in Teams to indicate they have a question. Please turn your camera and microphone on when addressing the committee and off when you're not speaking. In-person attendees are required to wear a mask on entry to the building and meeting room, but may remove them once seated. Would members and officers please remember to switch off their microphone, to switch the microphone on when speaking and off when they have finished speaking. Please speak directly into the microphone. And would attendees switch off their mobile phones and put them on silent. And I think this is one last time I'm going to say this: scan the NHS COVID-19 contact tracing QR poster at the entrance to the council. What we say that? Yeah, to the objectives here. Prior to the consideration of each application, and where there is more than one objection, the chair will ask whether agreement over sharing 5 minutes has been reached, or whether a spokesperson will be nominated. One or two individuals can speak to represent the group. As some participants may be present in person, some connecting remotely for the same planning application, your agreement to sharing contact phone numbers will be helpful so that you can discuss the sharing of the time in advance of the meeting. If agreement over sharing the 5 minutes can't be reached, then the order in which each individual is invited to speak will correspond with the order in which they are registered to speak according to Democratic Services, up to a maximum of 5 minutes. Have you got that? I don't think I quite have. Yeah. Yeah, it's relating to objectors. We've got one in person, which is Caroline Clancy, and we've got Mark Stevens, who we saw on the screen. And the rules are that you've got up to 5 minutes to say what you need to say. And because of two of you can either share that time or opt for one person to speak. Yeah, it's always been in the rules. Yeah, you probably would have been notified, would you not, when you registered your right to speak? Yeah. Well, it's up to 5 minutes between the two of you. So, do you want to share the 5 minutes?
Chairman, I'm very happy to share the 5 minutes. I will probably only take 2.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. So you will get the chance to speak.
Thank you.
Okay. And we'll bring that one forward so you don't have to sit here all night because it's way down the agenda. So I'll just go through the other preliminaries. Apologies for absence tonight.
Yes, Chair. Apologies from Councillor Donnellan, Councillor Kershid and also Councillor Masood.
Okay. Minutes of the previous meeting. Okay with those? Section 106 Local Government Finance Act 1992.
None that have been made aware of, Chair.
Any disclosures of interest tonight? Either say it now or when the item's called. Councillor Bridgen.
Thank you, Chair. In relation to agenda item 7, the applicant is Bristol Laboratories Limited. I work for a company which may be considered as a competitor of this company, and so I will declare a personal and prejudicial interest and won't take part.
Again, none, Chair.
Graham.
Yes, Councillor Taylor.
Are you with us now? Okay.
I am sorry, I couldn't hear you because the microphones were on if you were talking. Sorry about that. Okay. So shall I start, Chair?
If you want to start, Graham, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sorry, just again microphones. Okay, so thank you, Chair. So consideration of the report is set out across pages 153 to 178 of the agenda, and the proposal seeks planning permission for the erection of 2 four-storey buildings providing 62 apartments. This would follow demolition of the existing buildings and includes hard and soft landscaping throughout the site. Direct notification of 14 adjoining properties occurred. A site notice was posted and a press notice was issued. 29 representations have been received and the issues raised are summarised in Appendix 3 of the report. It is noted that there is a minor error at paragraph 47 of the report. The total calculation has omitted the sustainable transport contribution, with the total amount being 330,852. The total at paragraph 52 is similarly updated to 1,326,986. And since publication of the report, the applicant has offered a contribution of 62,000, which it is recommended to be provided towards sustainable transport and educational provision. So working through the scheme, here's a site location plan, which shows it at the junction of London Road and Tennyson Road. And here is the proposed site plan, which shows the 2 buildings arranged in a similar layout to the existing buildings on the site, of course, with the access coming between the 2 buildings here to provide for the rear parking and some more landscaping. This plan here shows the application site just here in relation to the Luton South Conservation Area, which is set within the blue line of this area here. Here's Memorial Park. And this is the water tower, which is the only listed building within the area. This is an indicative floor plan. A proposed floor plan showing the ground floor of the western half of the buildings. And then here is the ground floor showing the eastern element sort of in towards Tennyson Road. And then finally, showing some of the elevational detailing of the building. So this is taken from London Road looking southwards. Just for reference, the squiggly lines that you can see here on the right are the trees that would be retained within the property, as well as those, of course, within the highway. And then the same again is seen here facing northwards on the junction. This is the corner that would be there at the end of London Road. And then finally, this is from Tennyson Road looking to the west. And you can see one of the access points just here off of the highway. So thank you very much, Chair, for that. So assessment of the application. The principle of development is acceptable due to the excellent mix of housing and the lack of identified need for the existing use. The design of the development has undergone various rounds of pre-application discussions, and it is considered that the final form subject to this application is of a high quality design that provides for a contemporary iteration of sympathetic development. The site is larger than many others within the area, and for the reasons set out within the report, the size and scale of the development would be appropriate and the design is found to be acceptable. As reiterated within the report, there are no material implications upon the Luton South Conservation Area. The internal living environments of the flats would be logical, whilst the provision of private and shared amenity space would be acceptable. Together with the nearby provision of public open space at Memorial and Stockwood Parks, it is considered that the development would provide for quality accommodation. As set out within the report, no significant implications upon the amenities of adjoining occupiers have been identified, and appropriate conditions have been suggested as part of the recommendation to secure that position. Only those properties to the north of the site within London Road and Tennyson Road are considered material, but in the context of the scale of the existing buildings, no significant harm above the existing neighbouring implications that would warrant refusal of the development are anticipated. Again, that's gone out in length in the report. Following revision of the scheme, the Local Highways Authority has no objections to the proposal. The site is subtly within a sustainable location, and a contribution towards sustainable transport has now been secured. It is also acknowledging the climate change emergency. The development is considered acceptable in terms of parking and highway implications. To conclude, the development is considered to be acceptable in respect of each material consideration, and with the local labour obligations secured within the Section 106, would see economic benefit captured for the borough. For those reasons, the recommendation before members is for the approval of the application, with the recommendation revised slightly to provide for the contribution of £62,000 towards sustainable transport and education. Thank you very much, Chair.
Questions, just specific questions now. Councillor Abbas.
Thank you, Graham. What was the last bit you just said there regarding highways and education?
Through you, Chair. Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Abbas. Yes, so earlier on this week, or the end of last week, sorry, the applicant has offered us a contribution of £62,000 towards Section 106, and the recommendation of officers is that fills completely the sustainable transport of approximately 16,000, with the rest to be directed towards educational contributions.
Okay, any affordable housing or anything like that?
No affordable housing. The site has been independently reviewed by our assessor and it's found not to be viable to do so. However, of course, there is the full review mechanism set out within the Section 106 to hopefully achieve some or all of that post-development.
Okay, and that 62k that was offered to us, was that after the viability standards assessment by our independent assessor was done, or was it just a figure that just popped out of nowhere?
As for the actual figure itself, I can't tell you where that number's been derived from. As I say, the applicant hasn't shared that information. It's a voluntary contribution that they've provided, and it is separate to the viability assessment.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hussain.
Yeah, can I just ask, and I think it's more towards the highway manager, it is in terms of the parking spaces, 62 dwellings and 20 parking spaces. In light of the problems in the area, and there is hardly any contribution towards residence parking or anything else in that area, if that is considered to be acceptable? You, Chris?
Yeah, good evening. If I can answer that question. The development is in a sustainable location. We have a contribution towards improving sustainable transport links in the area. The parking spaces, we've asked for a parking plan as part of the travel plan requirement as to how they'll be allocated. They'll be allocated towards the residences that have a higher number of bedrooms. And the travel plan as well will set out various initiatives that will hopefully improve the take up of sustainable transport to meet the reduced amount of parking on the site.
Chair, in terms of the area has got a major serious problem, as we are aware of, and part of that area of the south have residence parking. So would that not increase the problem as it is already in that particular area?
We feel with the initiatives put forward that it wouldn't increase the parking problem in that area. It's on the very edge of the area where the parking is particularly dense. So no, we feel that the measures put forward would be adequate.
So I'll now go on to the objectors. And Mark Stevens, do you want to start first with your 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes?
I may, thank you, Chairman. Just for the benefit of the committee, I'm a resident at 126 Tennyson Road, which is the property which is immediately adjacent to the development. I would like to object to the application on the grounds of adequacy of parking, traffic generation, highway safety and road access. If I may refer you to page 4 of 26 or paragraph 8 of the pack, the NPPF paragraph 38 references that developments will improve the environmental conditions of the area. The application sets out parking for 20 spaces for 62 flats. The ONS website sets out that the average household outside of London has 1.3 cars. So even allowing for the reduced ratio of 1, that leaves 42 cars, which would require alternative parking. That parking is not available on London Road and must therefore be satisfied on Tennyson Road. Tennyson Road consists of houses on the even side with off-road parking in the most part, and houses with limited or no off-road parking on the odd side. Both sides have either designated HMOs or are rented to multiple occupants. Parking is at a premium and often cars are double parked. The benefit of living in this property for 12 years means that I'm fully aware, and I challenge what the road safety expert, the gentleman that spoke previously, said in terms of he doesn't think it's going to be a problem because the boundary of parking in this road, where there is a problem, has gradually moved further and further up the hill, and in fact actually encroaches this end of the road. We frequently have issues where the bus which travels along Tennyson Road cannot pass or has difficulty passing multiple double parked cars. And that would only be exacerbated by the additional 40 cars that would be put on Tennyson Road itself. And this is my concern, that it may cause issues with emergency vehicles seeking access. The property is also directly opposite one of the entrances to Memorial Park, as demonstrated earlier, and that entrance is also congested quite badly. The additional cars would make access to the park obscured and dangerous for children who frequent the park and cross the road. None of this improves the environmental conditions in the area, and therefore I would like to object to the application on those grounds.
Good evening, everybody. They might not see me if I sit down.
I think the cameras will pick you up.
I speak on behalf of a large number of our local community residents, and we all want to know why there was not notification of this development application was not sent to more of us. The residents of this area are being subjected to multiple changes, which is ruining their environment. With this application, we'll be losing yet another beautiful building. LBC planning seems to be determined to eradicate any building of heritage in this town. The existing building should have been included in the conservation area list, and we understand there is a desire at LBC to extend the conservation area. How would this development enhance our area? How many parking places are to be provided? Can someone clarify that? How many of these flats will be allocated to social housing? There are already too many flats being built in Luton. Affordable family accommodation is what's desperately needed. Parking around this area is a constant problem. The bus route is constantly compromised, and there are concerns about the access of emergency vehicles. There is yet to be another property sold, which is destined to become another HMO with no allocated parking. We already have several HMOs in this road, which add to the parking problems. For us as a community, we're already experiencing noise and an intrusion from the airport, the local traffic. The flights wave may change, which will further make the problem bigger. What about doctors, schools? The local amenities are hugely oversubscribed. When new developments have been built in the past, all existing residents, we've experienced power cuts and lack of water pressure. Road safety is an issue due to the inconsiderate parking, the two local schools. It's very dangerous crossroads that joins with West Hill Road. Why is the building not going to be returned to a care home or of another usage? We have the planning and we've seen the application that it warrants. We want to know why it was recommended for the planning approval. What happened to all the other objections that were sent on the original application, which we were believed to be in the excess of over 300 objectors? The street scene will be dominated by the skyline of this proposed development. This number of flats could possibly mean up to 300 people with associated cars moving into an already condensed area with major parking problems. Thank you.
Any questions by members to the objectors? Okay, thank you very much. Can I ask Graham regards the height? How does the height of this development relate to the original building and the properties around it?
Thank you, Chair. The residential properties in the surrounding area that exist on London Road and Tennyson Road especially, sort of peak out at 2 stories. On London Road, they vary. Obviously, they've got larger plots. They've got sort of more, sort of 2.5 stories, 3 stories, because they're much older buildings. The current application itself proposes 2 blocks of 4 stories, which against the existing site, the existing buildings on the site, is currently a 2 and a 3-story building with a connection in between the 2 elements. So the 3-story is currently adjacent or on Tennyson Road, and then the 2 stories, the original building, which fronts onto London Road. In terms of how that height would the proposed height of 4 stories translates into the existing street scene, and as set out in the report, it would be behind the existing tree cover that's there, and again occupying a more prominent and larger plot within the area. It's not considered that there would be any significant implications, which would then be furthered by the design that's been achieved.
Thank you. Questions by members? Any further questions? Any comments? Councillor Franks.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this application quite a lot, and there's no question in my mind at all that parking in Tennyson Road, even at this top end, where it's not quite as bad as it is further down, but even at the top end, it really is a bit of a nightmare. I can only really, I guess, assume that there is an opportunity, if the applicant were prepared to invest in it, in some basement or undercroft parking. Given the size and scale of what he's doing, my guess is that that ought to be a distinct possibility. I'm inclined to suggest that we ought to defer the application for discussions about parking.
Chair, I mean, I'm very reluctant to support the application on basis of the particular problem, as Councillor Frank has said, and I've said it right at the asking the highway manager. And I think unless we look for a solution in the area, all we're trying to do is to cause more problem in a highly congested area. And I would second the deferment and ask the officers to go back and look at the possibility of trying to get some sort of residence parking or something similar to that. Otherwise, I would have to be, but probably not support it.
Yeah, Councillor Abbas.
Yeah, as Councillor Hussain has already seconded the deferment, I think my statement would be probably wrong to speak up now. I would have just let this application go completely, because there's more issues than parking. And I think it's a bit unfair for us to put a resident scheme in there for the residents to be coughing up £60 for this development to be built. So I think that is wrong. But there is other issues than parking. There's no affordable housing in this application. A VA was done that said the developer said he's got no money. Then an independent assessor from our council looked at that. He said that this development's got no money. He's on this document, page 167. And today, Graham tells us they found £62,000 from somewhere. So I'm not really happy with all this application. For me, it was against anyway. But I mean, as Councillor Hussain has seconded now, so I don't know where we stand. Because I wouldn't be working just on parking on this location. There's other issues regarding affordable housing as well.
Yeah. Okay. So it's parking.
Yeah, affordable housing,
affordable
money, SR 106 contributions. There's a lot of questions to be answered.
Yeah. And I think the main issue for the residents is the fact there's 62 flats and 20 parking places.
Yeah.
In an area that I was ward councillor for 8 years, and so I'm pretty well. And I remember bringing in a residents parking scheme. But the top end didn't want to come into the scheme, but the bottom end did, where there was a parking problem. And the residents at the top end says, we don't have a parking problem. But over time, you do get a parking problem, and it needs to be addressed. Whether it needs a residents parking scheme, again, which would omit the residents of these flats, which is standard practice, then that may well result in accepting the car park provision. But it's been moved and seconded that we defer. All those in favour of deferral? Oh, David, do you want to say some more?
Very briefly, just to deal with this question of affordable housing, I thought I'd read somewhere, I can't find it now, I thought I'd read somewhere in the report that there was a proposal that the section 106 should include a subsequent valuation in case there is an opportunity to
That's at the current time. It's when the actual development is built and the flat's sold that you realise if there is sufficient money in there to provide it. That's what normally happens anyway. It's the overage clause, isn't it? Yeah.
Could I suggest then, Chair, that if the overage clause wasn't intended to be in the section 106, we should give notice now that it should be?
Yeah. Sonny, you wanted to say?
Good evening, Chair, members, everyone. Just before members decide to defer this item, just wanted to be clear why, what grounds we're deferring it for, because I'm not completely clear the application can be amended at this stage to come back in a different form than that's before you now. Just picking up on a couple of points. One is transport. So I completely get the concerns around parking, which members have mentioned, and also the neighbours have mentioned as well. However, when we're making planning decisions, we have to make them against the national policies that govern decisions on planning applications. And the MPPF, paragraph 111, says if there are highway impacts, they need to be of a severe nature before we should be turning away planning applications. You've heard this evening from the council's transport officer, who is satisfied with the parking arrangements for this site. The planning officers also consider the parking arrangements to be satisfactory. I would doubt whether this is an area where we could successfully defend on appeal. And in relation to the questions around viability, this was independently assessed by a consultant that the council uses, and the conclusion was that this scheme has offered as much of Section 106 contributions as is possible. So again, if this went to appeal, it's not an area that the council can successfully defend. So I'll ask members to take those into account before they make a decision on this application.
Okay, thanks for that, Sonny. So the recommendation is to defer. It's been moved and seconded.
That's what I moved, Chair, and which was seconded by Mahmood Hussain.
Yes. So all those in favour, please show. Anyone against? It's deferred to a future meeting to discuss whether the applicant's parking provision is inadequate, as better some members have felt.
Sorry, Chair, could we just ask, because people online aren't going to see who's put their hands up, so can we just say 5 that vote for deferral?
Who?
Needs to do a roll.
Yeah, actually, we need to do a roll call because people online can't see who voted.
Thank you, Chair. So if it's going to go through members' names, so if you can just let me know your vote for deferment. So first one is Councillor Agbley.
Agree for deferral.
Thank you. Councillor Bridgen.
Yep, 4.
Thank you. Councillor Franks.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Abbas Hussain.
4.
Councillor M Hussain.
4.
And Councillor Taylor.
4.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
The next item we'll go on to is Bristol Laboratories. Which is page 43 to 59. Councillor Bridgen has declared a personal prejudiced interest on the left.
I did, sorry.
We can all hear you now.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought I had pressed it. An update report has been circulated to members this week, just saying that the recommendation has been updated to increase the ability to add and delete conditions if necessary to any approval granted. In terms of the application, it's for a 3-storey side extension and car park alterations. The proposal is identical to one approved in 2018, apart from the PV solar panels that are now proposed, and the car parking would now retain 65 spaces, whereas in 2018 the permission had an extra 10 spaces to take it to 75. There's now more cycle parking proposed as well to take it to 40 in total. The proposal would result in a net increase in floor space to 1,854 square metres, and the additional space is needed for additional research and quality control laboratories which need to be on site. There's been no objections or adverse comments received from consultees. Moving on to the slides, the first slide shows the site location plan. The site is within the Laporte Way Category A employment area. The nearest residential is approximately 160 metres away on Kingsway to the east and southeast. The building has had various alterations in the last 10 years. Slide 2 shows images of the existing building and the car park, as seen there now on the screen. In terms of the next slide, this shows the existing site plan. The existing car park is to the right-hand side of the site, and as I say, it has 65 spaces. So most of the spaces are on the right-hand side, and there are a few other spaces dotted around the building, as you can see there. The development would encroach on part of that car parking area, not the actual spaces, but the bit in between the car park and the building. The next plan shows the proposed site plan. So the car parking area would be reconfigured following the extension of the building. It would, however, retain 65 spaces just laid out in a different way, and the car parking would be broken up by some areas of landscaping. There's 8 of the 65 car parking spaces would have EV charging points, and there would be passive provision put in place for the rest. And as I said before, there's now 40. There would be 40 cycle spaces, up from 20 as existing. The next 2 slides show the proposed elevations. The south elevation, which will hopefully be up in a minute, shows the PV solar panels that have now been introduced. There you go, that south elevation on the bottom there shows the green area there for the PV solar panels. And the last slide is just a comparison between the existing and proposed car parking layout. To just show you where obviously the building encroaches onto part of the car park there, and as I say, the reconfiguration of the car park. And the recommendation is for approval. Thank you.
Questions by members? Thanks.
Yeah, a couple of questions. First of all, I can find it. I see it somewhere in here, a reference to conditions being included where they were appropriate and reasonable. I can't remember whether those are the words. Yeah, appropriate and reasonable. So the first question is, were there any conditions proposed which were inappropriate or unreasonable?
No, definitely not. All the conditions are appropriate and reasonable. Thank you.
And I can't find a condition relating to the long-term maintenance of the landscaping, which we would normally expect to be included. And I can't find any reference to charging points being required in the car park, which again we would normally expect. If those 2 conditions could be included, then I'd be happy.
Right, and it does say in the report that 8 out of the 65 car parking spaces would be fitted with EV charging points, but if there's not a specific condition about it, then obviously we can put that on. Obviously the proposal should be carried out in accordance with the approved plans, but I can definitely put a condition on if there's not one on there about that. And in terms of the maintenance of the landscaping, there's an existing landscaping strip on the eastern side of the car park, which would be retained as part of the works. It's not being affected. And when I said the 65 car parking spaces are broken up with areas of landscaping. If you look at the proposed site plan, there's only really tiny bits of landscaping in between the car parking spaces, but we can definitely put a condition on about the maintenance of those small areas. That's fine. Thank you.
Yes? Okay. Any other questions? Any comments? No further comments? Then we'll go to the recommendation with the addition of the one that was suggested. All those in favour, please show. Oh, yes. I'm getting back to the old ways. I thought we were losing all this COVID stuff.
Thank you, Chair. So Councillor Agley?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Bridgen? Not here. Okay. Oh, yes, declared an interest, sorry. Councillor Franks?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Abbas Hussain?
For.
Councillor M Hussain?
For.
And Councillor Taylor?
For.
That's carried, Chair.
Okay. Nani, ready?
Hi, good evening, members and chairs. For number item 8, number 37 Burfoot Close, and the application was resolved for approval at last committee and deferred for the condition to be brought back. 9 conditions have been recommended, including period of consent, approved plan and documents, materials, window openings, landscaping, parking arrangement, bin store, single dwelling use and permitted development right. Details of conditions and reasons of are set within the body of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions? Any comments? Councillor Franks.
Yeah, okay. I supported the original refusal. I supported the original reasons for the refusal. I've visited the site. I've carefully considered all of the information that's been offered to me since, including this evening's report. And my conclusion is that I haven't changed my mind. I still support the original reasons for refusal. And if you're inclined to move the recommendation on the page before us, I clearly will have to vote against it.
Any other comments? Okay, the recommendation is to approve and the conditions laid out. Is that seconded?
Seconded.
So we'll move to the vote now.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Agley?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Bridgen?
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Franks?
Against.
Councillor Abbas Hussain?
For.
Councillor M Hussain?
For.
And Councillor Taylor?
For.
That's 4 in favour, Chair.
Okay.
2 against.
So we now move on to agenda item 9, land opposite 910 Battlefield, Great Marlings, Luton, which is page 74 to 107.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Clive Inwards. I'm a team leader for major applications. So this planning application seeks the erection of a commercial unit comprising 7,897 square metres gross internal area of flexible use class B2 and B8 floor space, together with parking, landscaping, access, lighting and other associated works. There is no written update on this item. The application has come to committee as it is a major planning application. I'll just take you through the slides. Slide 1. This is the application site outline in red, which is located in the northeast corner of the wider Butterfield Green Business Park site. The Butterfield Green site is located to the north of Stopsley, approximately 3.5 kilometres northeast of Luton town centre. Slide 2. This is the proposed site layout, which shows the building positioned towards the western boundary of the site with the service yard located behind. The building has been located away from the sensitive boundary edges in order to assist in minimising its impact when viewed from outside the site. Slide 3 shows the indicative master plan for the whole of the Butterfield site, which shows the built-out development at the site in grey, future development plots in blue, the Quad 2 development currently under construction in pink, and the proposed building in green, which is the subject of this application. Slide 4 shows the proposed ground floor plan, which is predominantly a large open warehouse space with ancillary offices, and you can also see the sunken loading docks towards the top of the slide. The next slide shows the proposed first floor plan, which again shows the warehouse space with the first floor accommodation on the right hand side of the slide. And we just got a few computer generated images of the proposed building. So firstly, this is at the southwestern corner of the site, both during the daytime and also the nighttime. And the next slide, we have an aerial view from the southwestern corner showing the double-barreled roof. And finally, on the last slide, we've got the main image shows the proposed building from the northeastern corner with the sunken dock loader, and the other images indicating the materiality comprising of metal composite cladding and the profile metal sheet roofing system. Members will see from paragraph 57 of the report that the main planning considerations are the principle of development, the impact on the character and appearance of the area, the impact upon neighbouring amenity, transport and parking implications, and issues relating to biodiversity, trees and landscaping, sustainability and economic development and job creation. In relation to the principle of development, policy LLP 7 of the local plan allocates the undeveloped land at Butterfield Green for the development of high quality B1 and B2 uses, which are compatible with the technology park concept. The policy also permits high quality B8, which are storage and distribution uses at 2 locations within Butterfield, including on the undeveloped 2.45 hectare plot in the northeast of the site. At 2.25 hectares in size, the application site falls comfortably within the 2.54 hectare plot in the northeast of the business park definition. Accordingly, a B8 use is acceptable in this location alongside the B1 and B2 uses, which are acceptable across the business park site generally. As such, the principle of development and the flexible uses proposed are considered to be acceptable in this part of the Butterfield site. With regard to the impact on the character and appearance of the area, the 2-storey building complies with criterion 8 of policy LLP 7, which generally restricts buildings to 2 storeys, and the height of the building is also minimised by the proposed use of a curved roof profile. The curved roof is divided into 2 elements to keep the ridge height as low as possible to reduce the scale and mass of the building. The scale and mass of the building is considered to be acceptable in this location. In terms of layout, the built form only occupies 35% of the total plot area, which accords with criterion 4 of policy LLP 7, and thus the layout is also considered to be acceptable. Finally, the building adopts a suitable contemporary design and use of materials which maintains the architectural consistency with previous developments at the Butterfield site. Drawing these issues together, the proposal is considered to have an acceptable impact on the character and appearance of the area. Additionally, given the separation of this site to the area of outstanding natural beauty, the existing landscaping around the site and the intervening existing and proposed future development, the proposal would have an acceptable impact in terms of landscape conservation and would protect the character, setting and natural beauty of the Chilterns area of outstanding natural beauty, subject to the relevant conditions. The proposal would not result in any adverse impacts on neighbouring residential amenity, given the distances to the nearest residential properties and the existing intervening built form. In terms of transport and parking issues, the Highway Authority has stated that the transport statement submitted with the application is considered to be acceptable and no adverse impacts are anticipated. The application provides for 10% of the parking spaces to have electric vehicle charging points, which is welcomed, and passive provision for the remaining spaces is to be captured through condition 8. Finally, the provision of 145 car parking spaces would be below the council's maximum parking standards, and modes of travel to the site can be kept under review through the travel plan. The amount of cycle parking provision is considered to be reasonable in the first instance and can also be kept under review through the travel plan. In relation to biodiversity, trees and landscaping, the ecology survey report submitted with the application makes a number of recommendations in relation to badgers, bats, reptiles and birds. With the adoption of such mitigation measures, the proposal is considered to be acceptable, and a condition requiring such measures is set out in the agenda. Additionally, with the retention of the important trees, hedgerows and woodland around the boundaries of the site, and with the adoption of a suitable landscaping scheme to provide replacement tree planting, the arboricultural implications of the proposal are considered to be acceptable. In relation to sustainability, the proposed development site is situated in flood zone 1, which is the lowest category of flood risk. Further to this, the Leeds Local Flood Authority has recommended conditions to be attached to any planning permission related to surface water drainage, infiltration and verification. With such conditions to be provided, the proposal is not considered to be at risk from flooding or result in an increased flood risk to neighbouring sites. With regard to climate change and sustainable energy, the planning application is accompanied by a BREEAM report, which demonstrates that the proposal can meet the BREEAM level good in terms of sustainability, and the proposal would be able to achieve an A rating energy performance certificate. This would meet the requirements of policy LLP 37 of the local plan. A condition requiring further details of energy use reduction and renewable and decentralised energy is also set out in recommended condition 16. In relation to economic development and job creation, the report demonstrates that the job creation of the proposal is likely to be in the range between 83 and 219 full-time equivalent jobs, depending on the use of the eventual occupier. Finally, any planning permission granted would be subject to a Section 106 legal agreement to provide for the use of local labour, goods and services during construction and operation, which is a material benefit of the proposal and should be taken into account in the decision making. As such, the proposed development would support economic activity in the local area and accord with policy LLP 13 of the local plan, which supports the delivery of sustainable economic growth. So in conclusion, the report demonstrates that the application site falls within the part of the Butterfield Business Park site where high quality B8 uses are acceptable in principle, and as such the proposal is considered to comply with policy LLP 7 of the local plan. Additionally, the report has demonstrated that the design and appearance of the building is considered to accord with the high quality design principles of the local plan, and the proposal would retain important existing landscape features around the site. Accordingly, the impact of the proposal on the character and appearance of the area would be acceptable, as would the impact on the Chilterns area of outstanding natural beauty. The report has also found that the impact on neighbouring uses would be acceptable, the highways impact and parking provision would be acceptable, and that the impact on biodiversity, trees and sustainability would be acceptable. Finally, the proposal would provide for job creation and sustainable economic growth, complying with both policy LLP 13 of the local plan and the council's wider aspirations. As such, it is recommended that planning permission is granted, subject to the conditions as set out in Appendix A, and the completion of a mechanism to provide for local labour, goods and services, and a monitoring fee of £10,000. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any specific questions by members before I bring in the applicants? Councillor Abbas.
Clive, I see there's no recommendations for any climate change. Like you to do this, Clive. They've got a beautiful roof on the top there. Any solar panels were recommended to them or anything like that, or just charging points?
Through you, Chair, we have got a condition relating to climate change and sustainable energy. Through that condition, we could explore the use of the roof for PV panels, but the condition would capture any sustainability measures that are required. So they would have to come back to us for further approval in due course.
Okay, can we add that condition in there then, please? Yeah?
Yeah, I think it's on there already. Let me just check which number it is and I'll come back to you.
I can't see under 87.
Yeah, so we've got condition 16, which relates to the BREEAM standard, but is also wider than that as well. So incorporates sustainability measures. Yeah.
Councillor Bridgen.
Thank you, Chair. So without knowing who the occupier, likely occupier would be, it's difficult to judge how many, I guess, HGV journeys there are likely to be to and from the site. So I'd just like to question, does the transport plan cover likely number of HGV journeys, or are there any conditions as to the maximum number that would be permissible to the site? Would we have any, I guess, control over the number of journeys to and from the site and the time limits, time of the day limits, as to when those journeys might be?
If I can respond on how we look at the data, we basically look at similar developments of the same sort of type, and that's how we assess HGV trip rates. And this falls within acceptable use for the existing planning approval for this site. That's how the transport assessments are undertaken. With regards to the time of days, there is a spread throughout the day of when transport movements are likely to occur, and we look at that from a traffic flow point of view. If you're considering noise, then that's less of a concern as a highway engineer and would be assessed by the environmental people.
Okay, I'll bring the applicants in now and they can maybe clarify some points that have been made. So, Adrian Schofield, Emma Gill. And you've got up to 5 minutes to speak. Do you both intend to speak? If you could use the mic, that's okay. And the other one's working.
Okay. Yeah, you sit on the right hand side, because when it comes up on the YouTube stream, it will come up as objector.
Yeah. And if you switch that, can you switch that one off now? And then. Okay, so I think that's a minute of your 5 minutes usually.
I know, already. Crikey. I'm going to have to read really quickly.
We'll start when you're speaking, right?
Right, we're off. Good evening. Firstly, thank you for the council officer's help and timely consideration of this application. It is refreshing to work with the local authority who appear to have resources in place to deal with planning submissions efficiently. My name is Adrian Schofield. I'm a senior director at HBD, who are the developers of the proposed scheme. HBD are the long-term development partners of the landowners of Butterfield. During our involvement at Butterfield, we have worked with the council on the use allocation for the site, have invested heavily in infrastructure, both on and off site utilities and on-site roads to facilitate future development. Completed a successful small unit speculative scheme, which is 100% let/sold. Completed in November 2020, a 75,000 square foot building for a local company, Eden Farm, who have relocated to the park and who employ around 150 local people. We are currently on site with a further 85,000 square foot small unit scheme, which is scheduled to complete in March 2022, and all units are now pre-let or pre-sold. This represents over £35 million worth of investment in Butterfields and in the provision of employment space for the borough. The success of the development carried out to date demonstrates the attractiveness of Butterfield as an employment location, providing accommodation with flexible use permissions can be offered. The business park has potential for a further circa 470,000 square feet of employment space, and HBD are fully committed to building out the whole of the scheme to the same high quality of the buildings that have already been constructed. As the case officer sets out in his report, the proposed development before you tonight is fully policy compliant and follows the same high quality designs for schemes that have been approved by this committee and built out over the last couple of years at Butterfield. The setting of the proposed building has been carefully considered and has been designed after consultation with council officers to minimise its impact on the surrounding area. The building will be surrounded on 3 sides by a substantial landscaped buffer and will be at least 450 metres from the nearest residential property behind the existing Eton Power building. The proposed building has the potential to provide, dependent on its end use, employment for between 83 and 219 people, plus additional jobs created during the construction period. I would urge members to vote in favour of granting planning permission for the scheme in accordance with the planning officer's recommendation.
Sorry to interrupt. Could you use your colleague's microphone because that one's not working? Thank you.
Is that better? Yeah. Thank you, members of the committee, for allowing me the opportunity to speak in support of this application. My name is Emma Gill and I'm the agent for this application on behalf of Penry Boot Developments. The proposal comprises a high quality, well-designed, sustainable and modern employment unit. The layout has been arranged to be respectful of the site's surrounding landscape character, and the appearance of the building fits with the intended design aesthetic for Butterfield, this being an attractive high quality business park. Strategic Employment Allocation LLP7 requires proposals to deliver high-quality B1, B2 and B8 uses compatible with the technology park concept. By virtue of its design and flexible B2, B8 use, the proposal fully accords with these land use principles. As outlined in your officer's report, the scheme has been assessed in terms of impact, including impact on AONB, highways, biodiversity, trees and neighbouring uses. Extensive landscaping has been employed to mitigate any impact on the surrounding area, including the AONB, and to reduce any visual impacts. The proposal has been designed to meet policy requirements in terms of sustainability, including BREEAM, building regulations and energy performance, and I can confirm that there are PV panels on the roof. The scheme will provide a policy compliant number of electric vehicle charging points, with 10% active provision and the remainder passive. The application has been supported by technical reports which confirm the proposals would not have any impacts with regard to air quality, noise, flooding or contamination. These conclusions have been confirmed as acceptable by your environmental health officers. For the reasons outlined and as stated within your officer's report, the application accords with planning policy at all levels and will provide key benefits to Luton, including significant job creation at a time of economic uncertainty. We therefore respectfully request that members approve the application in accordance with your officer's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions by members to the applicants? Okay, thank you. Questions by members? Comments? Councillor Franks.
I was rather amused by the reference in paragraph 91 to high quality B8 uses. In my experience, there is no such thing as high quality warehousing and distribution. Warehousing and distribution tends to generate relatively low levels of employment and high levels of vehicle movements. It seems to me that by voting for this, where we do not have specific tenants in mind, we do not have any idea at all of the kind of business that a prospective tenant might be conducting. We are in effect being asked to vote for completely unlimited vehicle movements in a warehouse whose nature we have no idea at all. Without some serious restriction on the B8 warehousing and distribution use, I can't possibly vote for this. The whole concept of the Butterfield development was high-tech employment, and there's no such thing as high-tech warehousing and distribution.
Do you want to respond to that, Clive? I mean, it's fully policy compliant, as we've already said, and it's employment. It's attracting employment to the town.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't think I can add too much more to what I've set out in the committee report. This area was specifically set aside for B8 storage and distribution uses, primarily because of the screening that's around this part of the site. So the inspector, in looking at the local plan, specifically made a modification to the original local plan to widen the use class. Also, the policy only says that it has to be compatible with the technology park concept. We feel as officers that it is, through the high quality design and the materials that we can control through the condition that's set out. So yeah, the officers' view is it does comply with that high technology concept.
Okay, Councillor Sue, do you want to come in first?
If I may, Chair, thank you. So I was just going to add to what Clive said, actually, and apologies, I didn't mean to interrupt Councillor Hussain, but I just thought it's worth members knowing that having spoken to the economic development team today, and I did ask if a member of that team could attend committee tonight, because I think it's quite important to understand that they are being contacted quite regularly by companies who are seeking this kind of employment floor space. And there is nationally a complete lack of this kind of employment floor space. The demand is certainly outstripping supply. In fact, Rizwana had said to me today that she had been contacted by a French company who supply parts to Vauxhall. And at the moment, there is nothing available. But this is exactly the kind of employment space they'd be looking for. I appreciate we are unable to sort of identify exactly what would go in there eventually, but I think there is a high demand. I think the concept of a technology park, which was originally envisaged for this site, is perhaps one which is now out of date. Having said that, this specific part of the site, which Clive has set out in quite a lot of detail in the report, is allocated for B2 to B8 use. So it does comply with the policy there. And I just thought it was worth members being able to consider this before making a final decision. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank Councillor Hussain was next. Do you want to come in? Councillor Mahmood Hussain.
Yeah, can I just say, in terms of the employment in Luton since the pandemic, it is probably one of the worst in the country, as you've seen the economic bulletin comparable to the similar sized town. So I think any jobs really which are, you know, in terms of the number of people that will get unemployed at the moment would be welcome. And in terms of the design, it seems very attractive. I mean, you know, there are more warehouses around Luton. I mean, in Central Belt, the majority of them are there. But to me, to see an employment come into 200 jobs in Luton is welcome. And I would support anything that improves the in terms of the employment in Luton and the economic well-being of people of Luton. And I will strongly support that.
Yeah, I think it sends out a message to potential business owners, and you know, it's the wrong kind of business in the wrong location. I think it's employment, which we desperately need in this town, and a sustainable employment.
Just in terms of what you said, when I joined this committee, or that area was designated as Technology Park or Luton Silicon Valley. Did I hear you say it's outdated now? Is that what you said? Because that hasn't been mentioned before. This is the first time I'm hearing that idea that that's a technology or high and Silicon Valley for Luton is outdated. Please, can you clarify?
Thank you, Chair. Through you, yeah, I'm happy to clarify. So these were the comments from the Economic Development team. The team are not seeing any demand for office space or technology type space within the area, and most of the inquiries they're getting are for this type of space. So I think their comments are that actually this is something that perhaps when the local plan was produced was obviously good to aspire to, but the demand has changed since then, and particularly since COVID, the demand for office space has reduced significantly. Most high-tech companies, actually, their employers work from home at the moment. Whether that will ever go back to how it was before is difficult to say. So I think on that basis, and I think members have expressed the view tonight, that it does offer an employment opportunity for people in Luton. And I think the policy itself is flexible enough, actually, to allow quite a wide range of uses. So if we were to get high-tech company looking, then of course, that would be great. And that would be something we would totally support. But at the moment, the demand is not for that kind of use.
Any further comments? Okay, I'm going to move the resolution to approve. Is that seconded? And we'll go to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Agley?
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Bridgen?
Against.
Councillor Franks?
Against.
Councillor Abbas Hussain?
For.
Councillor M Hussain?
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Taylor?
For.
That's 3 carried, 1 abstention and 2 against.
So that's carried then. The recommendation has been approved. Now we'll go on to agenda item 10, numbers 37, 39, Cheapside, which is page 108 to 131.
Thank you, Chair. Consideration of the report is as set out across pages 108 to 131 of the agenda, and the proposal seeks planning permission for the erection of a 3- and 5-storey building providing a mixed-use scheme comprising of 28 flats and 5 retail units, a restaurant and a gym. The proposal would also see the deculverting of the River Lee and the creation of a new public thoroughfare alongside it. This would marry with the approved park on the adjacent Silver Street car park site. Direct notification of 11 properties took place, and the site and press notice were issued, and no representations have been received. So walking through the plans, here you see the site location plan on the corner of Silver Street and Cheapside. Here's the spiral at the bottom of the image down from the car park above the Mall, and then just here to the northwest of the site is the Silver Street car park, which has previously been discussed in terms of it becoming a park. In terms of the proposed site plan, what you can see here is the ground floor. When you can see the River Lee there, being shown as being opened up, the grey area just here provides for the pathway through from Barbers Lane to Cheapside, and the pink unit is where the restaurant is proposed to be. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blue units just here would be retail, and we use that term loosely. Of course, that's now Class C, so it could be retail, travel agents, coffee shops, anything of that particular nature. And here is the basement level, so you see the cycle storage there, as well as some refuse, and then storage for all of the units. And then here on the western end of the site is where the gym would be located. So taking you up through some of the plans, again, here we have the ground floor plan, which I've just been through. And then moving up, this is the 3rd floor plan, which shows the roof terrace at the rear of the property, which is communal for all of the residents of the application site. And then going up again to the 4th floor, you see balconies on these properties just here that are recessed, and then those on the end make use of the roof space above the 3-storey elements, which provide for much larger terraces, again for the enjoyment of those future occupiers. Here is the elevation which as seen from Silver Street, so this is looking northwards towards the site. You note some of the elements that have been described in the report. You've got the industrial building appearance with the windows, very much consistent with the former hatting trade, which of course is part of the borough has grown up around for the last 200 plus years. And then on the ground floor level, you've got a distinct podium element, which is sort of greater in height and again is distinct, again consistent with other buildings within the surrounding area. And then this is from the northern elevation looking southwards, so back towards the Mall, and you can see here sort of to articulate some of the height differences. So you've got the terraces just here and just here, and then you've got the garden terrace at first floor level just here which is communal as stated previously, and then here you've got the frontage of the restaurant with some of the external seating elements as well as planting. And then finally, this is looking back towards John Street from a western viewpoint. And again, this is the sort of additional angle of the rear of the building. Again, seeing much more of the elements I've just described. So the application site is situated within the town centre where mixed-use developments are encouraged. The non-residential uses are therefore acceptable, whilst the provision of housing would also be appropriate in this context. Whilst the mix of housing would be a 50-50 split between 1 and 2 bedroom flats, this has allowed for the full agreement of affordable housing, developer contributions and the opening of the River Lee in agreement with the Environment Agency. As a result, the principle of development is found to be acceptable. The design of the development is also considered to be acceptable, being sympathetic to the character of the surrounding historic environment, and the development would result in a significant regenerative benefit for this part of the town centre. In terms of additional benefits of the proposal, significant additional footfall and activity would positively contribute towards the character of the area, as well as both the daytime and nighttime economies. All of those elements, together with the mixed-use nature of the scheme and its high-quality design, are also consistent with the recently adopted Town Centre Master Plan framework. Given the characteristics and location of the development in relation to surrounding properties, it is not considered that the proposal would result in any significant material harm to the amenities of adjoining occupiers. This is again noted that there's no representations have been received for the scheme. And in terms of future occupiers, the internal arrangements of the flats, together with the provision of private and shared amenity space, would provide an acceptable living environment within such a dense location. No on-site provision of car parking is provided, with cycle storage incorporated into the basement level. In such a highly sustainable location, this is considered entirely appropriate. It's reiterated, of course, the entirety of the town centre is covered by CPZs, and therefore no nuisance parking is identified as being any significant concern. Overall, it's concluded that the development is consistent with the relevant policy requirements of the local plan and comprises a well-designed and sustainable form that would bring forward much-needed regeneration for the locality, including revealing another section of the River Lee. The local labour obligation within the Section 106 would also provide for additional economic regenerative benefit within the borough. And for those reasons, Chair, the recommendation before members is for the approval of the application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions? I see Hussein Abbas and David Franks.
Can I ask you, in terms of the affordable housing agreed 6 flats, can you just tell us, what size? Are there 2, 3 bedrooms? What has been agreed?
Through you, Chair. So the that would be subject to agreement with our housing colleagues, but it will be prejudiced towards the 2-bedroom units, of course, likely in some sort of maybe 4 and 2, sort of 4 2-beds and then 2 1-beds. But again, it's conversations that will be agreed with housing and the applicant at a later stage, which is typical of these sorts of applications. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
And that was one of my questions, but the second part of that is that they are making the 106 contribution as well. So in paragraph 53 says this has been agreed. So is that the affordable housing and the S106 contributions towards education and transport as well?
Through you, Chair. Yeah, sorry for any confusion there, Councillor Abbas. Yeah, that is agreed in terms of both developer contributions and affordable housing.
Thank you.
David Franks.
Yeah, I just want to be absolutely clear what I'm voting for here. Graham said, made a reference to 50-50, 1-bed and 2-bed. The application described as 12 1-bedroom and 16 2-bedroom in the title. And at the bottom of page 110, it talks about 14 1-bedroom and 14 2-bedroom. I want to understand exactly what I'm being asked to vote for here. Is it 50-50? Is it 14-14? Or is it 12-16?
Through you, Chair, sorry for the confusion, Councillor Franks. That what is reflected on the fact sheet on page 7 is what is there, and it is 12-16. Sorry, that's a typo within the report. So it's 12 one-bedroom amounting to 43% and 16 two-bedroom amounting to 57%.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Any comments? Okay, the recommendation is to approve with the conditions. I'll move that.
I'll second that.
Go to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Agbley? 4. Thank you. Councillor Bridgen?
4.
Councillor Franks?
4.
Thank you. Councillor Abbas Hussain?
4.
Thank you. Councillor M Hussain?
4.
And Councillor Taylor?
4.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Okay, so we go on to the next one, which is a bit of an odd one for us. That's land adjacent to Progress Way, Vauxhall after sales warehouse. And that's 132 to 152. And we've got the applicant, Simon Fisher. Are you still here? You've not got bored and gone home. Not yet, no, I'll call you. I don't, yeah. We'll let the officer introduce the report first.
Thank you. An update report has been provided to members this week, just amending the recommendation to include requesting delegated authority to enter into a Section 106 agreement to include any obligations considered necessary and any variations to the Section 106 that may be needed, and to add any planning conditions to any decision to approve as necessary. For example, there is reference in the report to the provision of fire hydrants and a local labour clause being included in the Section 106. These may or may not be included in the Section 106 following discussions, after committee, but the above update will allow for that to take place. The fire hydrants, for example, may end up being dealt with via condition, and the applicant has actually asked for that to happen. So, we'll have a discussion about that, and that should be agreed. The update also confirmed that the Luton part of the application site is within the Category A Sedgwick Road and Progress Way employment area. So turning to the specifics about the application, it's a hybrid application comprising an outline element and a full element. The outline part of the application is for the demolition of the existing Vauxhall warehouse buildings and the redevelopment of the site for up to 116,000 square metres of industrial, storage and distribution uses and associated access, servicing, parking and landscaping. Means of access only has been applied for under the outline element. In terms of the full element, this is for the site accesses and the landscaping along Luton Road. It's a cross-authority application between Luton Borough Council and Central Bedfordshire. Turning to the slides, this is the site location plan on the screen. It's a 23.41 hectare site. 22.10 hectares are in Central Bedfordshire and only 1.31 hectares are in Luton. As it's an outline application, certain parameters are being applied for, and it's including up to 116,000 square metres of industrial storage and distribution floor space, maximum building height of 24 metres, and they've said that they would like to develop the site for between 2 to 7 units, so any number of units from 2 to 7. Moving on to slide 2, the red line boundary there, that's obviously the application site. The purple area you can see is the outline element of the application, and then the green strip along the bottom, that's the full element along Luton Road. The blue line you can see that defines the boundary between Luton Council and Central Bedfordshire, and the long thin triangular area to the right hand side of the purple area, so in between the blue and the red lines on the right hand side, that kind of long thin triangle, that is the area that is within Luton, and the rest of the application site to the left of the blue line, that's all in Central Bedfordshire. So as you can see, Luton's only got a very small part of the site within its jurisdiction. Moving on to slide 3, this is the proposals map from the Luton local plan, and this is basically just to say that the red X, which is in the top left-hand corner, that is the application site. So that's where it sits in relation to Luton, right on the edge of Luton there. And the kind of purple hatched lines you can see to the north and east of the site, those are it's surrounded by category A employment areas in that location. Slide 4 shows an indicative layout of the site in terms of how it could be developed. As I said before, it's an outline application. They put parameters in for the proposal, which they want to develop between 2 and 7 units on the site. This is just an example of how the site could be developed with 5 units. But as I say, there's no guarantee this is how it would be developed. They're just showing you how it, a possible layout with 5 units. If they did develop this layout, for instance, with 5 units, would only be the corners of units 4 and 5 and lorry parking and loading bays that would be included within the Luton area. Slide 5 shows a comparison of the site location plan and the indicative plan that you've just shown, just to show you again what would be in Luton if they did develop that proposal there. Slide 6 and 7 show typical elevational treatment that they are looking to aspire to on this site. Some different views there. Slide 8 has information on the landscaping buffer, which would be along Luton Road. All of that is actually in Central Bedfordshire's area, but it's basically just to show you the kind of landscaping treatment they're looking to employ along there. The orange circles on that plan there show 3 trees on Luton Road that have got tree preservation orders on them. And just to confirm, those 3 trees there with the TPOs would be retained as part of the works. So for the avoidance of doubt, we are not bringing the application to committee today with a recommendation, but the LPA wants delegated authority to determine it and any subsequent applications on the site, together with formulating the Section 106 agreement and conditions, etc. In terms of Section 106 contributions, 2 transport-related financial contributions have been requested by our highways colleagues. First of all, 75,000 for the improvement of the public footpath that runs from Coverdale to the National Cycle Route 6. This would be to provide a cycle facility that would link the development to this route. And then secondly, £8,000 for a weight restriction on Toddington Road. And the applicant has agreed to both of these contributions. And as I say, they would be secured via a Section 106 agreement. The nearest residential accommodation is 100 metres away from the development, and they were consulted on the application and no objections have been received. Thank you.
Thank you. Abbas, you got a specific question?
Yeah, just one. So the pie that's in Luton, yeah, that falls onto Sedgwick Road. Obviously, this is an outline application, I understand that, but can we put a restriction in, a condition in saying that they cannot have any access from that pie into Sedgwick Road or into anywhere on the side roads there, the Progress and Sedgwick? The access has to be from Luton Road for whatever units they want to do.
Yeah, the application shows 3 different access points on Luton Road. So the Luton Road part of the application, that's where the full element is. So that's going to be fixed as part of this. If it gets approved, that would be fixed. And that's the only the vehicular access points into that development are all from Luton Road. There's nothing from any other elevation. No.
Okay, Simon Fisher, if you want to come forward. And you've got up to 5 minutes to speak. And members may wish to ask you some questions afterwards, okay? So your 5 minutes starts when you speak.
Thanks very much, Chair. My name's Simon Fisher. I'm a director at Goodman with the applicant for this submission. I just wanted to start by saying a few words about Goodman. Firstly, our focus is on owning, developing and managing accommodation for businesses in key locations. Our track record includes successful developments for a wide range of businesses operating in and around London, the M1, the Midlands. This is our first in Luton. We'd like to bring forward best-in-class accommodation here. We've therefore taken care in going about this application in the right way. We've engaged with the officers and other stakeholders, and the feedback received to shape the proposal that's before you for determination this evening. Secondly, I'd like to reassure members that we're focused on delivering regeneration of this site. The outline application procedure that's been selected is to allow us to progress discussions with future occupiers once we've achieved planning certainty and tailor reserve matters accordingly. Obviously, it takes a number of months and years to bring a site of this size forward for redevelopment. And as the officer's report makes clear, we understand Vauxhall are aiming to consolidate their after-sales warehouse function at Ellesmere Port and to redeploy existing staff. While Vauxhall may require a plot within the redeveloped site, the land is of sufficient size to accommodate multiple occupiers in a mix of modern business accommodation. We'd like to ensure that the process of decommissioning the existing operations and constructing new accommodation is seamless, and this planning application will help to enable that outcome to be achieved. In addition, I just wanted to reiterate a couple of the key planning considerations this evening. Firstly, as the officer's report notes, this is a cross-boundary application. A small part of the southern part of the site sits in the administrative area of Luton Council, and the northern part sits in the central beds area. But in terms of planning policy, the boundary really makes no difference. That's because both authorities have allocated the land for new employment development in both local plans. Secondly, in addition to that local plan allocation, we believe that this is the right location for investment in new development for businesses in order to meet objectives for new business accommodation, employment opportunities, and upskilling. That's because it's brownfield land with a very large building, much larger than the buildings which we're proposing, coming to the end of its life. It's because it's next to other industrial uses. It's because it has good access to the motorway network for commercial traffic without impacting on any residents. And as the officers noted, traffic restrictions have been secured by the agreed Section 106 agreement. It's because it's in the right location to attract a workforce from Luton and the surrounding area. Finally, moving beyond the principle of the development, we're really pleased to see that your technical officers have confirmed that there are no outstanding issues, and it's great to see that the planning application has not attracted any objections whatsoever. We're only at the outline stage at the moment, and we hope you're able to support the officer's recommendation this evening. Outline planning permission would provide the basis to move forward to the next planning stage, which will be the preparation of more detailed reserve matters proposals in due course. So thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. Any questions to the applicant? Thank you very much. Any further questions by members? Any comments? So the recommendation is in front of you, the amended recommendation. I move approval. Was that seconded? We'll go to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Agbley? Thank you. Councillor Bridgen?
4.
Councillor Franks?
4.
Councillor Abbas Hussain?
4.
Thank you. Councillor M Hussain?
4.
Councillor Taylor?
4.
That's unanimous.
That's unanimous, so permission has been granted. And we go on to the last one tonight. That's the Luton Concrete Plant, Leagrave Road. Page 179. So over to you, David.
Thank you, Chair. There are no updates on this application, so the matter is as per the report, and it can be found at 179 to 193. We could have slide 1, please. The application site, is outlined in red, is located in the northeast part of an existing industrial park, being located to the south of Leagrave Road, from which there is vehicular access. The site is situated within an industrial area, beyond which to the north is residential development. On the other side of the railway line is the Cemex concrete plant, which separates the residential area in Selborne Road from the railway line. The site is approximately 2.5 kilometres to the northwest of Luton town centre. If I could have the next slide, please. This slide provides the details of the existing site layout, which comprises areas for the concrete batching plant, aggregate and sand storage bays, ancillary offices, together with other facilities, including associated car and lorry parking. The purpose of this application is to increase the amount of mineral arriving at the site by rail from 70,000 tonnes per annum to 120,000 tonnes per annum. This increase in delivery would require up to 2 rail deliveries per week, as currently 1 taking place, so this would be 1 extra delivery per week. In all other respects, the proposed development intends the continuation of the existing use permitted in 1987 without any alteration to the modus operandi of the site, including the hours of operation. The 70,000 tonnes currently imported will continue to be utilised on the site for the production of concrete. The additional 50,000 tonnes will be sold from the site as dry. The aggregate will be stored as it is currently within the existing storage bays and will be transported from the site via 20-tonne HGVs. This equates to 10 loads, 20 movements per day. By way of comparison, the current site operations are served by 36 HGV movements per day. Therefore, this proposal will see this increase to 56 movements per day. Members will see from paragraph 66 of the report that the main planning considerations are the principle of development, highways, noise, air quality, impact on neighbours and third-party representations. All of these considerations are fully addressed in the report. In summary, the principle of the use is well established and the site has operated since the late 1980s as a concrete batching plant. The established nature of the site is recognised to the extent that it is safeguarded in both the Luton Local Plan and the Minerals Waste Local Plan. The site is one of 3 existing railhead facilities within the plan area used to import minerals that are not quarried locally but are needed for construction projects in the area. The continued use of the depot is all the more important since the Minerals Waste Local Plan recognises that there is not an extensive rail work to meet the needs of the local construction industry. The use of the depot to import additional aggregate to serve the needs of the construction industry offers sustainable transport. In terms of highways, the Highways Development Control Manager has raised no objections to the increase in aggregate throughput. As far as the consequences of the development on air quality and noise, the Council's environmental protection officers on the matter of both of these matters is satisfied that there will be no adverse impact arising from the additional throughput, subject to conditions and an environmental management plan. There have been 2 letters of objection received in respect of this application. The matters have been addressed in the report. They relate to noise, dust and traffic. Conclusion. The planning application involves the continued use of an established rail depot which was granted planning permission on appeal in 1987. The use of the depot will operate as before, the only difference being the intention to increase the throughput from 70,000 tonnes per annum to 120,000 tonnes per annum. The additional material will be brought to the site as dry aggregate and will be distributed locally by road. The applicant has demonstrated the need for the material. Insofar as the principle of development is concerned, the site is well established and is safeguarded in both the Luton Local Plan and the Minerals Waste Local Plan, as it is encouraged by the NPPF. The proposed use would lessen traffic on the road network, and it is considered in this respect that the proposed development is consistent with policies MSP4 and MSP10 of the Minerals Waste Local Plan and policy LLP13 of the Luton Local Plan. In addition, the use of the depot to import additional aggregate to serve the needs of the construction industry offers sustainable transport consistent with policy LLP31. The highway engineer has raised no objections to the proposed development. The proposal does not therefore offend policy LLP31 of the Luton Local Plan. On air quality and noise, the Council's environmental protection officers are satisfied that there will be no adverse impact arising from the additional throughput, subject to conditions and an environmental management plan. Accordingly, the proposed development will not be contrary to policy LLP39 of the Luton Local Plan and policy MSP10 of the Minerals Waste Local Plan. On this basis, it is recommended that permission is granted, subject to conditions as set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions? No. I got the he indicated, but he's withdrawn his. He didn't decide not to attend.
I forgot the chap's name. David, you say the Environmental Protection Unit has raised no matters of concern. Am I correct?
No, they recognised the issues, but subject to the environmental management plan and the conditions that they were happy that these points could be met.
Okay, so how, it says here on paragraph 49, however, there is a letter of objection in respect of this matter. So where's that letter, please?
Sorry, paragraph
49.
I'm sorry, can you, finding the paragraph?
49, page 186.
Yeah, I've got that.
Yeah, it says the Council's Environmental Protection Unit have been consulted on this matter of air quality, particularly dust.
Yes.
The site has been operating since 1987 and there has been no reported complaints. However, there is a letter of objection in respect to this matter. So where's the letter? Because it doesn't mention anything about their objection.
Sorry, the letter of objection was received in respect of noise and there was one in respect of dust, but there have been no complaints. The matters were raised as a consequence of the application.
And traffic. So, bit confused, you know. So so where are the letters from the residents?
There are two letters which have been received. One is from a garage owner in respect of noise, and the other was a letter of objection which related to noise. But there are dust suppression measures on the site which involved water and suppressing the dust, and so subject to that.
The neighbouring areas. Can you tell me which? Okay, please.
I think it was.
So obviously, where else did you? So
well, there was 58 letters of notification, and they related to the surrounding area in Leagrave Road and Selborne Road.
So residents on Selborne Road, which this falls onto the back of their gardens, have raised concerns with the councillors in their wards. I remember being on a site visit with the environmental officers of this council, with the ward councillors, with the residents, and I physically firsthand saw the dust that comes into their gardens. So we're talking good 6-7 months back now, and I saw the dust. If we are now are saying that there's an additional 50 tons of cement coming into this land, from moving it from 70 to 120 per annum, and I'll come on to the transport bit later next, that there should have been a much more consultation done, because those residents will suffer drastically, the ones that are living on Selborne Road parallel to this location. And I think this has been unfair of this company, because they should have done a more better consultation than this, instead of submitting an application and sticking notices on lampposts, because it's unfair. And already, because Councillor Javed's away in Pakistan, and already had 2 residents already complain that they didn't know nothing about this planning meeting tonight, that were part of that consultation that happened. So I'm a bit worried to what's happening at this location. And then for the transport manager to, so I'm not blaming Chris, maybe somebody else, but transport department to say that there's no issues at that location, that is a horrendous location. Leagrave Road, Woodland Avenue Junction. And now you're moving this to 56 movements per day of HGV lorries. And those lorries ain't small lorries, they are big lorries. And I'm sorry, I mean, I think there should be more consultation done with this application, with this applicant in that area. And I am definitely not happy at the way this is going, because that area is already chock-a-block with 36 lorries. Yeah, you're moving it up to 56. I'm sorry, I mean, this is not on. I don't know how these transport officers are working now, but this is worrying.
Can I stop you there, Kev? It already operates as a concrete plant.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm not aware of any complaints at all in my time of being a problems at this particular plant. So I don't think it's fair to raise them now at this Development Management Committee. You should have either raised them before, because it's something that I can only consider the report. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel the consultation was sufficient. It's been operating since 1987 as a concrete batching plant, and I'm not aware of any complaints at all. Councillor Franks.
Okay, where do we start? This really isn't a suitable use for this site. It never has been. That's why when the application came in the 1980s, the council refused it. As a result of that refusal, of course, the consent was granted on appeal and has been operating since 1987. It is hard to convince yourself that we should allow an intensification of the use, but on the other hand, having had our fingers burnt in the 1980s, I'm inclined to believe that granting this consent now at least gives us some opportunity to control what's going on the site. Whereas if we refuse it, we're in the hands of the government planning inspectors if an appeal comes forward, which it may well do, who could grant the intensification of use without any of the conditions that we're now being asked to impose. I'm inclined to support the application purely on the grounds that it gives the council an opportunity to introduce new conditions which otherwise might not apply.
Yeah, yes, please.
Can I just say, Chair, that at the moment there is no environmental management plan that the site operates within. This would provide an environmental management plan, and so therefore, as Councillor Franks has suggested, this would provide more control and allow greater monitoring to ensure that there is no adverse effect beyond obviously beyond the current situation, but it would control what goes on at the moment.
It's controlled within the confines of the operations. It's certainly something that if it wasn't there, then I'm glad it is there now. Councillor Stein?
In light of what's been said by my other two colleagues, I mean, we know the problem we had in Tuddington Road in terms of the dust, the noise and all that, and that has taken us for years to sort out. And if there are problems in this side, then I think we need to have the strictest conditions possible that we can do at this stage to be able to control that, rather than the whole thing where residents as well as the area, I agree with Councillor Abbas, is absolutely chock-a-block with not only the traffic, but the number of other vehicles in that particular part. So I think the stricter control by the highways as well as the environmental could be helpful to the people that live in that area.
Any further comments? Okay. There being no further comment, then I'll move to the recommendation. I'll move approval. Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Okay, we'll go to the vote.
What is being proposed by members as the extra conditions, isn't it?
David, you said it was already in there.
It's
already in there, yeah.
There is a condition which requires the submission and agreement of an environmental management plan.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's already there.
It's condition 3.
Okay, we go to the vote now, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Agbley? 4. Councillor Bridgen?
4.
Councillor Franks?
4.
Councillor Abbas Hussain?
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor M. Hussain?
4.
And Councillor Taylor?
4.
So that's carried. Planning permission has been granted subject to the conditions. And I think that being the extent of the business tonight, thank you very much for your attendance. See you all again. Oh, well done. That was for the people speaking already. Yeah. The applicants of progress away. Yeah.